Right. Here we go again, doing a live video. Let's see. Okay, so here is the commission piece that was sent to me. The person that sent it to me, he wanted me to ink this piece. So this was drawn by Nick Bradshaw. Here's Nick Bradshaw's signature. I worked with him on Wolverine and the X-Men. And Nick drew four individual pieces. This one is Storm over here. And then this one is, I don't know who this one is. Okay, there's some like random backgrounds. This one over here is Jean Grey. Just like a little block as a random background. There's no legs underneath this one. And then here is Marrow. Just a random block as a background. And no legs. Okay, so we have these four characters. Hi, Julio. How's it going? Good to see you here. Ready for another awesome live? Yeah. Hey, Sam Gaming. How's it going? So these are my drawings. These are drawings that someone contacted me, asked me to do a commission where I'm making it. And then he had this idea where instead of me inking over these original pieces, he wanted me to kind of take these four images and move them around so it looks kind of like a comic book cover. So I scanned this one on Photoshop in color, and I removed all the red, and then I made it into a blue line, and then I came up with this. This is what I came up with. It's partially inked, not completely inked yet, but I plan to have this completely inked. So I took these four characters, they're missing legs. I redrew some of the legs over here. These two characters, the missing legs, I redrew them. I scanned them. I kind of moved them around, and then I showed it to the person who was commissioning me. And then he liked how I placed it. So right now they're all clustered together. And then for the areas that didn't have legs, I just redrew some of the legs and extended the legs a little bit longer. So right here, I extended Marrow's legs, and also extended Jean Grey's legs. So now I'm going to ink this, and I've inked Nick Bradshaw before. And when I was inking Nick, I would be using these pins over here. Statler micron. Hey, Snart. These Statler pigment liners. These were the microns that I would be using when I was inking him on Wolverine and X-Men for Marvel Comics. So here, there's a lot of black areas. So what I usually like to do is I would go in there and fill in all the black areas first. This way, when I'm inking, I'll get more work done. And I'm going to be using a brush pen over here. Hey, Princess Chameleon, it's inking time. Yep, it's inking time. This is partially ink. I wasn't going to go live, but I was talking to Snart earlier. And then, hey, Mighty R, it's been a while. Good to see your artwork. Thank you. Yeah, so this, again, let me go back. So this is the original pencils. I scanned it, and I repositioned all the characters, and then I redrew some of the legs to make it look somewhat like a comic book cover. So I'm going to be taking this Pentel Aquash brush pen, like this. Again, it's you can tell that there's a little bit of ink in here. I don't really wash it. A lot of people ask me if I wash it. And then I'm going to be inking all the areas that has like solid blacks first. I try not to ink the outline and go back in blacks, but I'm going to go and fill in the black. So I'll take the bottle of ink, and then I'll just dip it in there. Okay, just dip like that. When I dip the bottle of ink, I try not to touch anywhere on the side of the bottle, because if I dip it in there and I touch the side, ink is going to be like right over here or something. And then when I'm holding it, I might get ink on my hands, and it'll get ink on the artwork. So that's something to be mindful about. Okay, so I'm going to start inking. Let's see. Let's go in closer so we can all see what I'm making in detail. So we're going to start with Storm first. And then the penciler drew all these lines. I'm just going to create halos around. Halos like this, a little outline. Like, for example, like that, where you can still see the line. And then I'm just going to go and ink the rest of it like this. Okay. So actually yesterday I was talking to one of my friends, Daniel, and he was saying to me, Walden, you should create a podcast where you're telling stories about how you work in comics, or maybe once in a while talk to one of your artist friends where they can come on, and then you guys can talk about comics and how it is working together. And I thought that was a good idea. Hey, Jimmy Reyes, How's it going? It's good to see you here. And I thought, that's really a good idea. Maybe I can do a podcast. But instead of doing podcasts, I was thinking maybe I can do sort of like a podcast, but on YouTube. I use YouTube a lot, and I have so many commission work that I can do, where I can just like ink those pieces and then just talk about how how it is being a professional artist working in comics and doing all sorts of other work. So if that's something that you're interested in, um, let me know. Hit the like button or something, so I can see the like meter go up, and then I'll do some podcasts in the future. All those podcasts will be free, where it's just like right now you're watching on YouTube live. Yeah. So usually I don't really stream any of my work that I'm doing for the publishers, because I can't really show the work that I'm working on until after it's published. But with commissions, it's okay. I can go ahead and stream some of those. Let me see if there's any questions. Let's see. Oh, no questions. And if any of you have any questions that you want to ask me about anything, working in comics, working as an artist, or like anything, feel free to just type it into the chat and I'll respond to it. And otherwise, I'll just keep talking. Like I'm someone who can like answer any questions. Jimmy Reyesart is in the house. Love your work, bro. Just seen you on Finch Flux Monday night live, or was it yesterday? Jimmy Reyesart, he's a really good artist. He has a YouTube channel and he has very informative videos. So if those of you who's never been to Jimmy Reyes' art channel, check out his art channel. It's some good stuff there. Yeah, he's inked Dave Finch before, and he has some interviews with other artists. That's pretty good. I actually haven't done any interviews with other artists. Usually, I would just make videos on my own. Sometimes I think that if I'm scheduling around other artists, it's just like they're busy. I'm busy. I've been on other people's art channels before, where they're talking to me and then I'm talking to them and we're interviewing each other. But on my channel, usually a lot of times I'm just making my videos on the whim. The videos I make, as well as the live stream right here. I wasn't even thinking about live streaming until like just right now. What ink are you using right now? The ink I'm using is this one right here. Speedball Super Black, if you can see that without me spilling the ink. Speedball Super Black. So I'll use this ink only when I'm using this brush. Okay. I also use other ink such as Black Magic right here. I'll use Black Magic when I'm using the Crow Quill. And the other ink I also use is the Universal ink. This one's white, but I also have black. I'll use this for the reprintograph pins. And then the microns, usually I'll just buy the microns, and then when it's out, I'll use a universal ink and I'll refill them myself. Some of you may not know that these pins are refillable. I have a video, which is one of my most viewed videos, on how to refill these with my own ink. So you can just refill these and use them over and over again. Okay, I'm gonna go in here and fill in some of these areas in black. Okay, so right now I feel my ink is kind of dry. There's ink in there, but the tip is kind of dried out a little bit because I wasn't inking. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna dip this in here, and then it'll just start flowing again. Okay. So right here, there's taper lines. This is the part where a lot of inkers, even like published inkers, they have a hard time inking. Right here, taper lines is when you're starting from a thin line to a thick line and it closes up into a nice space. So what I like to do is I like to push into it. So right here, I'll test it out, make sure my ink is flowing nicely and I can get a tip. Once I get that, then I'll start pushing into it like this. I want the tip to start in the right place, and I want the negative space, the tip, the white part of the tip, to kind of end in the right place. If it doesn't, sometimes I'll go back in there and then I'll go and tighten it up a little bit. Like for example, this one's a little longer. I just go back in there and make that a little bit shorter. So here, I'm just gonna close up this one. Okay, so that's called tapering the lines. Okay, I'm gonna fill this in. Okay, and then there's some tapering going on this side. Nick, the penciler, hey Mark Maldonado, nice to see you here. So this pencil would just scribble it in, but as an inker, you don't just trace the lines that are there. You go in there and try to make them a little bit better, space them out nicely and make it neater. So I'm going to start from here. And then it's all about spacing it nicely. And then once I get to the black area, I'll start closing them up a little bit. And to close them up, what I'm doing is I'm just pressing down the brush a little bit harder. And I'm trying to press it right when it meets that point in the back. There. Now that's closed. Okay. We have some of the hey roll meat tickling. How's it going? Good to see you. Wow, a lot of people today watching. A lot of the people who usually comment on my YouTube. I'm glad to see you guys all here. Let me see if there's any other questions. Okay, so I'm just gonna go here and then fill this in. Now, I could sometimes when I'm working on 3 pages or 4 pages at a time for publishers, I'll go in here and I'll fill in all of this in black first. And then I'll move on to one thing at a time. But since this commission is, I'm just working on one piece, I'm gonna let this piece dry by not filling in all the way to the edge. Not filling the inside. I'll just maybe put an X over there to remind myself that that needs to be filled in with black later. So this is just inking the outlines. Let's see. Okay, I just started the live video maybe a few minutes ago. Okay, I'm going to continue working on Storm. Move back a little bit so you guys can see. Here's Storm's hair. Not really tight what's going on. So I'm just going to go in here and kind of use a little bit of my drawing skills based on what I know from drawing and just kind of fix that. Here's the hair. Here's this. Here's this. Okay, we're going to go here. Well, what you want to do is when you're inking, you want your lines to be as smooth as possible. And you'll see me turn the page frequently with my left hand because I'm using my right hand to make a certain arc. Okay. And now we have that. I'm just going to give this a little bit of a tapering over here just to make it look a little cooler. Okay, we have that part. And then we're going to do the same for this side. We're going to start light, and then I'm going to start pushing in and having those lines a little bit closer. There we go. And I'm going to fill all this in with black. Okay, going to go here. Fill this in. And do that. Now that I have Storm done, the penciler is that an aqua brush? Yes, this is the aqua brush right over here. This brush pen I bought many years ago before any of the other comic book artists knew about it. I remember I went to Japantown in San Francisco. I live in San Francisco, and they had these Japanese brush pens, and they're used for calligraphy or for watercolor painting. What happens is you open this up and you fill this with water or you fill it with ink, and then every time you squeeze it, ink or water will flow out, and then you can do like calligraphy on it, or if you're drawing with watercolor pencils, just give it a squeeze and then paint over the watercolor pencils and it'll make it look like watercolors. But I don't really use it that way. I just keep the barrel empty and then I would dip it in. And these pens are only like maybe $5. I've been using these pens for a long time. As you can see here are some of my older ones. You can see that I don't fill the insides with ink or anything. I just dip it. When they start, after a while, the tip, like this tip looks okay right over here, but to me it's not sharp enough. And each of these could last like a good 1 year. You see this one, it's kind of blunt. So I can use this to do like big filling big black areas, or if I can do dry brush effects. It's, to me, they're not sharp. Okay, so I'll just like get rid of like put them aside and use them for something else, like dry brush effect or spatter effect or whatever. And now use a new one, and then I don't have to worry about, oh, I spent like $25 for a Winsor Newton. That costs a lot of money. This one's only like $5, and then it'll last for a long time. Very low maintenance, unlike the Raphael or the Winsor Newton, which you have to shampoo and condition and just take care of it all the time. With this one, you're just inking with it. Once you're done, you just cap it back, and then you can continue using it the next day. Okay, I'm gonna have this taper towards the center over here. So, oh, the penciler. Penciler is Nick Brashaw. This is the original pencils. This is his signature. These are the original pencils. The client asked me to take these scans and then make them into somewhat looking like a cover. So again, there's no legs here, but then there's these two characters. They're not facing each other. Right here, I took Meryl. She's facing this way, but on Photoshop, I made her face the other way. And then there's Jean Grey, no legs. So what I did was I printed all this out, removed the blue, printed out in blue lines, and then redraw some of the legs on top of it to form this image to make it look somewhat like a cover. So all of them are interacting with each other. Because originally, I think Nick Brashaw was drawing 4 individual pieces, and he was going to cut them into 4 pieces and then sell them individually. I think the client actually bought one that's not cut. And then originally he was going to ask me to ink them as is, but I said, what if you put them all together? Like, what if you put them like to make a little cover? He thought it was a good idea. So that's how I made this. Okay. So I'm going to go in here and start closing up some of the lines over here. You can see some of the grays in my pencil where I drew stuff in. So a lot of times when I'm referencing other artists' pencils, I would actually go online and look for any work that they've done of the same character, and I would draw those details. Not just clothing detail, but especially like hatch lines or rendering lines. I also reference the way those artists does rendering lines. Some of you guys who have followed me for a while knows that I've inked Arthur Adams before, and once in a while I would get asked to ink Arthur Adams commissions where they'll send me layouts which aren't complete, and then I'll go in there and then I'll start referencing author stuff. Not only am I referencing characters, but I'm also referencing how author would draw and render and then put it into the commission piece. I'm going to close this up a little bit more. Let's see if there's any questions. See, cool. I like the details and instructions. Thanks, Sam. Is it going to be on the cover? If so, which one? This isn't going to be on the cover. This is actually a commission for someone who's going to be collecting it. I named it the cover because we wanted to take this artwork, which was separate, and made it form into one image that looks kind of like a cover. Okay, so I'm gonna go in here and start filling in all the black areas. Once you fill in all the black areas, it'll look like you have less work. And I'm focused on one character at a time. This one's Storm or Aurora. Okay, and then here's some of the line work here. Okay, so all the black on Storm's done. Now I'm going to work on this character. I don't know the name of this character. If anyone knows, please comment. Let me know, because I don't know the name of this character. I don't know who that is with that long eyebrow over there. But as I'm making, I'm just going to follow some of the lines. Luckily, I don't have to draw like Meryl. I knew this was Meryl, and so I would just Google up Meryl and see how her legs are, and then just draw them accordingly. But I don't really know who this character is. Okay, I'm going to start inking. Do a ghost line. Make sure my hand goes that direction, and then put pen to paper. Okay, and then I'll just turn it with my left hand, and I'm constantly spinning. When I'm drawing in pencil, I don't spin the artwork. I only spin the artwork when I'm inking, because when I'm drawing, I'm not really focused on like a perfect smooth line. I'm just focusing on drawing the image correctly, and then once I'm done with that, then I'll go in there and I'll start inking in the details. Here's let me show you guys some of the pieces that I worked on. Here's one that I'm thinking about maybe streaming tomorrow. Here's a character that I penciled, and it's based on someone else's character. So I drew the pose, and then after I drew the pose, I just take the details of that character, and then I'll draw it in, and I'll ink it. So this is a piece that I penciled and that I'm inking. Probably stream that tomorrow. Okay, so here's some of the blacks here. Okay, just fill it in. I don't want any of my lines to be shaky. I want it to look smooth as best as I can. Okay, we have the collar here. Draw some of those lines, and then we have the neck. Okay, sometimes when you're inking, you can't really see what the penciler is. So as an inker, it's always best to also know how to draw. I find that if you have a little bit of, or if you have any kind of drawing skill, or if you understand anatomy a little bit better, sometimes the penciler will not draw in certain stuff because they're probably thinking that they'll be inking it themselves. But later on, they abandon it, and then, or because of deadlines, publishers will get like another person to ink that. So as an inker, it's always best to be able to draw as well as opposed to just tracing, because that way you know what lines are supposed to be added or what lines don't need to be there. I remember when I first started inking comics, I would just ink everything. I was just tracing because I was not sure if I was supposed to be inking everything exactly how it is, or maybe I shouldn't change some stuff. Took me maybe a good couple of years before I started understanding that as an inker, it's always best to embellish the work and make the work better than how it looks like before you started, before you get the pages. So I'm gonna ink some of this. Use the same brush, and then I'm getting a nice fine thin line, and this is all by how much pressure I'm putting down on the brush. Sometimes if lines are smaller, then I will use microns. For example, here's a piece that I've inked, which is really small in detail. See how big the brush is? This was inked completely with a micron. This was, I mean, like, because it just does the fine, like, the job better. This one here was done with a brush. Okay, this one here was done with a repeatograph pen. Okay, so usually when I'm making pages, I'll jump around and use different tools. If a figure is bigger, like for example, this figure here, it's way big for a splash page. If it's this big, then I will use a brush. Okay, so the same character right here, this character, same character, I use a brush for the bigger area, and then for the smaller one, I'll use like microns, or I'll use a quill. So here's one thing about being a good artist is understanding your tools instead of just relying on the tool to do the job for you. See, right now it's kind of dry. I know it's kind of dry, so I'm going to have to dip the brush again. So I just dip here. Let me see if there's any questions. Nope, no questions so far. Okay. Again, feel free to ask questions. I'm always happy to answer your questions. In fact, I prefer questions because I want to talk about what you guys want to hear. Okay, I'm going to fill this in. Fill all these in. And then the smaller details, I come in with a micron or something or a quill. Fill all of this. So, okay, while I'm working on this, like my mind is on creating that podcast. Walden, do you use reference for those drawings? I did use reference for the drawings. So let me find the original drawings. Here is the original. Here's the original pencil. This one was by Nick Bradshaw. Okay, I'm not sure if you're asking this drawing or if you're asking about the drawing or this drawing that I drew. But usually when I'm drawing something on my own, I do use reference. Like I'll look at as many times as I look at the human anatomy and study it. When I'm drawing different poses, I still look at like like the biceps, the muscles, the six packs. If they're bent a certain way, I want to see how it looks like, and then I do look at reference. I don't look at comic book reference. Instead, I look at real people reference. Sometimes I'll Google up like a search for a body just to see how a body looks when it's twisted a certain way, and then I'll draw the pose. After I'm done drawing the pose, then I'll draw the outfit around it. Hey Daniel, it's good to see you here. You were just talking about the podcast. What kind of ink do you have on your aqua brush? The aqua brush that I'm using, this one, Ruben, I only use the Speedball Black, Super Black, because I find that this ink runs more smoothly. I never had it clog or have any issues by using this brand of ink, and it's a nice ink. Doesn't cost that much either. I like how the ink has this nice sheen to it. If I angle this in the right angle, you can kind of see a sheen on the ink. I like that sheen. I don't like the black magic where it's like a flat black. Sometimes I feel that after is inked with the black magic and you're rubbing it or something, or you're erasing the pencils underneath, that those pencils will I mean the ink will kind of like come off. Like I had experience where the ink just comes right off. But the speedball, if I erase on top of it, the ink doesn't come off. It'll stay black. Like black magic, sometimes it will just rub off. If you're using a quill to ink with if you're using a quill and you're using black magic, it won't rub off. I mean, a little bit of rub off. When I say rub off, I mean it's rubbing off and it's smudging other areas, almost like pastels, like it's smudging other areas. That's what you don't want. Because if ink comes off, you can just like respot it, like go back and make it dark again. But if it smudges other areas, it's a lot of work to clean that up. Okay, here's some of the details of this line. Again, if any of you guys know who this character is, please comment down below because I don't know the name of this character. Okay, right here. How about what size is my aqua brush? Oh yeah, so let me show you. Here's the original packaging I got. When I first bought this was before they started making these pins for the U.S. market. It was only made in the Japan market. I bought I think I bought 3 cases of them because when I bought one, it kind of worked. It's Pentel over here, and this in Japanese means small, so it's a small brush. After a while, when it gets dull, it'll start to feel like a medium, and then when the tips runs out, it'll start to feel like it's a thick brush. But all you need is the small brush, and then you can go from there. Okay. Yeah, because I learned why buy a small, medium, and large when you can use one brush. Here, you can ink that small, thin line. You can also create inking 2 lines and create that thick line. So no need to get like a smaller brush. Just no need to get like a thicker brush. Just use a smaller brush to create all of that. Okay, I'm going to ink the outside of this character. Here, like almost like a leathery outfit right over here. Let me see if there's any other questions. Sumi ink. I bought a bottle of Sumi ink before. Sumi ink, that's the one with the green bottle. It's pretty good, but they're expensive. Those Sumi ink are expensive. Like if for the price of one bottle of Sumi ink, I can get like a few bottles of the speedball ink, and then both ink does the same kind of job. But I know what you're talking about. The Sumi ink, that big green bottle. It's a nice looking bottle. I don't know if I like want to spend that amount of money because I'll buy ink in bulk. Like I have, like here's an example. Here's my arm. And then here is a Higgins. Okay, here's a Higgins ink. And then I have like so many bottles of ink. And then here's like another bottle of ink. Let me see what brand of ink this one is. This one is also Higgins right over here. So I buy a lot of ink because I actually go through a lot of ink when I'm working. I also buy, let's see, let me go grab this bottle of ink. They used to make this in a larger bottle, but the universal ink right here, Culinary Universal Ink. This one is what, 8 ounces? This is pretty good. I used to buy them in 64 ounces, but I can't find them in larger bottles anymore. I find that the larger the bottle it is, the more economical it is. And then I would just use them and then pour them back into a smaller bottle and just continue working with them. That's the ink I use. Which is the ink you use? Hey Kai, how's it going? Have you ever tried acrylic ink in your ago brush? I haven't tried acrylic ink. I do acrylic painting. I feel that acrylic ink is a little bit thick. I don't want the thick ink to kind of like clog up my brush. So I keep acrylic separate from my regular ink. I want the ink to be fluid on this. I don't want it to be too thick and then to clog it. One of the worst things is when you're doing work and you're working on a deadline, all of a sudden you have to go back in there and like work on it to make it better. Okay, I don't like the way this one. I'm gonna get rid of this completely. I'm gonna get rid of this. Actually, I'm gonna go in here and taper these lines. Okay, and then here's some folds. These folds aren't following the penciler Nick Bradshaw. I just feel like there's supposed to be some folds there, so I added those on. In fact, if you look, there's the pencil part that was my drawing, and then the blue line part is the penciler's artwork. Can we go in here and fill this in, make that smooth? Let's see, Walden Neo. Let me see, where do you buy those huge bottles? Let me see, the huge bottles of ink. You can go to an art store like Blick's. I don't know if there's Blick's near you or Pearl or any like a brick and mortar art store. Just go there and they'll sell it in those big bottles. I don't know if Amazon would sell them in big bottles. It probably cost more, but the big bottles, it's actually cheaper if you go to an art store and buy them. If you find the Culinary Universal ink, use that. Those are like the best ink. But the good brand of ink is the Speedball, and I like Speedball. Speedball, I represent their company. If you go to Speedball's website and look at their professional artist network, I'm one of the artists that represents their brand there. Every so often, we would talk, and then they would send me stuff to try out. And then I represent Speedball. I like Speedball. That's a good company. They're nice people. They send me a lot of inks and brushes and pin nibs and pin holders. More than I can use. Okay, let's see. Let me see if there's any other questions. Where do you buy those? Hey, Walden. Happy early Thanksgiving. I'm almost done with my inking assignment. Good, Kai. Kai's one of my mentees, I guess. He's on my Patreon where he would do like assignments where I upload some of the files where they can download the files, and then once they're done, they can send it to me, and I'll do a art review and critique video, like some of the videos that you guys have seen on my YouTube channel. And then once I'm done, I'll send the markups back to the person that I'm critiquing, and then they'll learn from there. And then I'll upload a video where everyone else can learn. But if you're the artist that's getting into critique, you learn the most. In fact, I had like a couple of people that I was mentoring, and they're just doing it through my Patreon, and then they actually got work, which is pretty awesome. I'm pretty happy. I am one of those artists that is really, I get really happy and excited when people that I try to help out get work, because like that's like the best feeling in the world. Being an art instructor and teacher myself, when you see students excelling in their craft and they're telling me that they got work, and that's just the best feeling. That's the best feeling in the world. Okay, let me see if there's any other questions. GB Reyes had to go grab a beer. Colonor Universal 8 ounce. That's the one that I was using. I'm back. Love Speedball and Colonor Universal ink. I use both. No, so I'm going to tell you, some of you guys are using Colonor and Universal ink. I use 3 ink. I'm going to, every time I say this, I'm going to put it out there. Never, never mix any of your inks. You sometimes talk to artists out there and they'll tell you like their formula, where they're saying, I use like 80% of this ink and 20% of that ink, or like I'll dilute it or whatever. I don't do any chemistry with my inks. The reason I don't do that was a long time ago. I had a 32 ounce bottle of Colonor ink, and then a 32 ounce of Black Magic ink, and then both bottles were half done, or half full, or half empty, or whatever might want to call it. And then I thought, I'm gonna put all that into one bottle, so I don't have to have all these empty bottles around. So I poured half of that into one bottle, and then half of and then threw the bottle away. And then less than a week later, when I tried to pour the ink out, it was coagulated. It became jello. So I couldn't use that ink anymore. And ever since then, I stopped mixing inks. Probably some of the other artists that I spoke to in the past, when they're telling me their percentage, they're probably mixing their inks with in a 2 ounce thing, but never mix like all those big ounces. It's not worth it, because you're just gonna waste all that ink. Okay, there were some loops here. Now I'm drawing these fold lines, but I'm going to ink over them, and then I'm going to show you what I do to get that clear. I'm going to create a little halo here. Halo is separating 2 black areas, and I'm just going to fill this all the way, because this is faster for me to do it this way. And then what I'm going to do later is I'm going to get a gel pen, and I'm going to cut into the black. So for those of you who don't know what cutting into the black area is, I'll show you guys how to do that later. Okay, so all the black is filled here. Okay, her face is kind of black. I don't want it to be completely black. I want to give it some kind of a hatch line over here. So I'm going to make it black up here. And then I'm going to start tapering on the bottom here. I'm going to start thin, and I'm going to press into it, just to give it some kind of a glow effect on her face. And now those taper lines start becoming hatch lines. Okay, there's that. And then I'm going back in there and just darken up a little bit. Some of the hair, work on the flow. Okay, some of this. And I'm going to try to keep my brushwork at a minimum, because I really want to come back and use microns, the Statler, to ink in the rest of the line work. The artist who drew this, his name is Nick Brashaw. He draws kind of like Arthur Adams, and I want to ink this piece as if I was inking Arthur's piece. I know Nick Brashaw, when I was inking him on Wolverine and the X-Men, I was using Statler microns, which are these guys, and then he liked the work. And these are the same microns that Arthur Adams introduced me to him. When I was working with Arthur on The Incredible Hulk from Marvel, as 3 issues of Incredible Hulk and 1 issue of giant size Hulk, I was inking it with repeatographs, and it didn't look, to me at the time, I thought it was okay, but to him, it didn't look like the way he wanted it. And then we went back to his home, and then he went to his art studio and pulled out a box of 12 pins, and he just gave it to me, and he said, well, use these pins. I think he had so many because he didn't know about refilling. That's before I knew anything about the pins. And then I started inking Arthur with those pins, and we went back and forth, and then picking each other's brains when we had lunch. When he would come over to San Francisco, or I would go over to Walden Creek, and we would just talk comic books and stuff. And that's how I started inking author. And then when Nick Bradshaw was inking Wolverine the X-Men, I saw his work, and then I liked his work, and I thought, this guy kind of draws like Arthur Adams. I think I'm gonna send him a message on Facebook to see if he would like me to work with him. So I messaged Nick Bradshaw, and then he instantly responded back to me, and he goes, "Walden, I know who you are. I have your artwork on my wall." I'm like, "You have my artwork on your wall? What do you mean?" "Yeah, I have one of your Arthur Adams pages. Like I bought that was penciled by Arthur and ink by you. It's on my wall. Yeah, I would love to work with you." And then that's how I worked with Nick Bradshaw for a whole bunch of issues for Wolverine and the X-Men. Yeah, Wolverine and X-Men. And we also worked on, what else did we work on? We also, Guardians of the Galaxy we worked on. And what else? I think there was something else I can't remember. After a while of working in comics, you worked on so many books that you can't remember all the titles. It's just like another project. Okay, let me see if there's any questions. Let's see. Cool. Jimmy Reyes mentioned Eon boards, especially for inking. I find that my brushes microns collide nicely. Let me go back. Little speed. Okay. Love me some Walden. He's my guy. Thanks, Mighty R. Danny wrote, "Walden, what are the best kinds of comic boards?" Okay. From my taste, I think the best kind of comic boards, based on the ones that I bought on my own, is the Canson comic boards. They're a little bit thinner. They're not as thick as Strathmore. I think they're like a thinner ply. I like that because when I need to you create blue line, it runs through my printer easily without getting jammed. So the Canson artboard is pretty good. Strathmore is pretty good. Eon boards, I can tell you this right now, guys. You guys will be excited to hear this. Well, let me rewind it back before getting too excited. I remember Eon boards from a long time ago. I hated Eon boards. I did not like anything Eons because I bought a few packs separately. Every time I'm inking with a quill, it always tends to bleed. Like 10 times out of 10, it always would bleed when I'm using a quill. And then I have to change up my inking and use a brush so it doesn't bleed. That paper always like tore up. It's like when I'm inking a line, that line becomes a caterpillar. I think throughout the years, they got a little bit better. Now, Eon boards, during the pandemic, before the pandemic, Marvel would send out Marvel boards. Marvel would print out their own boards, and then when artists would need Bristol boards, they would send it out to the freelance artists. Now, when we had the pandemic, all of Marvel decided to not go into the company anymore. And what happens when we artists needed Bristol boards? The editors and the publishers aren't going into the company. How are they going to send it to us? So Marvel decided to hire Eon boards to make Marvel boards. Okay, so when they started making Marvel boards, it was a little bit different, and I was thinking, oh man, I don't really like Eon boards. Like it always bleeds. But ever since I got like those Marvel Eon boards, it's actually not that bad. It's actually pretty good. It takes a little bit longer for it to dry compared to the regular Marvel boards from before, because before the Marvel Bristol board had a little bit of tooth into them, but now the Eon boards made by the Marvel boards made by yeah. This okay. Here's the Marvel board right over here. Now I'm going to show you this Marvel board. It's printed by right here. You see Eon Plate 100. Okay, this is actually an Eon board that they printed for Marvel that they distribute through Marvel. So if you wanted Marvel boards, you can actually go to Eon and then order their art boards, and it's the same kind as the Marvel boards. But I find the Canson boards is a little bit better. It has a little bit of a tooth. Canson is comparable to the Marvel boards from before, I think. Okay, I'm going to ink in this line here, and then some here, and then ink in this line. These are some of the folds on her costume. Let me see if there's any questions. Let me answer them one at a time. See what best artist ever. Thank you, One Muddy R. Oh yeah, happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to all of you. If you're here, hit that like button. If you haven't done so already, it'll help me spread the might helps the channel. Strathmore 200 sequential series Bristol board is pretty good. Yes, that's pretty good. Strathmore is pretty good. They're a little bit on the pricey side, especially for inking. I find that my brushes and microns glide nicely. Make sure your microns are like nice and full ink. Cool. I think Jimmy Ray's art mentioned Eon boards. Kai. I also tried mango paper recently. It is weird for penciling because it's very smooth and has a kind of glossy feel, but it's amazing when inking. Yeah. So here's the thing. Back then, when I was working, actually even now, when I'm working for Marvel, well, when I'm working for DC Comics specifically, you can request boards that are smooth stock or rough stock. And I know as an inker, I will always want to have the smooth stock because when I'm inking those lines, you get a smooth line. But if you're inking like a rough stock that has a little bit of a tooth into them, when you're inking, that ink line skips. Now, every time I would work with a penciler and I'm getting the Bristol boards, most of the time it would always be the rough boards because when you're penciling, the pencils grip to the tooth boards, the rough boards, a little bit better than the smooth board. But when inking, it's better to be inking on a smooth board. Now, these days, Marvel, DC, or all the other publishers out there, IDW, Image Comics, or any other comics, it's let me add a halo on the outside of her leg. I think it'll look better, almost like a stripe over there. So most of the boards these days, Marvel or DC, the pencil would draw something and then they would scan the artwork. After a scan, is sent to the inker, and the inker will ink on top of that. So most of the boards that's made these days are just smooth stock. There's hardly any rough. Well, I mean, I guess there's rough stock for the penciler, but the inker will get this smooth stock because the ink's better. Like it's just a little bit softer, smoother. Ink this line. I do a ghost line. Draw this line right over here. Let me see if there's any other questions. See, I tried mango paper. Yes, mango paper is okay, but it depends on if you're using smooth stock or a rough stock. I agree with Kai. I like the 200 series Strathmore. I also like the 300 series. You know that when it's 200 series and 300 series, that's just the thickness of the board. Like it can be thick or yeah. Image Comics was like 400 series, I believe. I don't know if it's like that now. Like it was so thick, it was thicker than a baseball card. Like I remember when I would spin the board and this board would hit like the side of like my table, it would create this crack sound like block, because the board is so thick. This one is about like this is 100 ply. I know because when I lift it up, it's just like a little bit of a bend to it. Certain boards are a little bit thicker, some are thinner. So when it's like 100, 200, 300, 400, that's just the thickness of the board. Fill this in. Let me see what other questions there are. Do you like Tombow brush pens? I've actually never used the Tombow brush pens. I heard other artists use it. I think as an artist, regardless of what brush you're using, it's not the tools that makes the artist. If you understand how a brush works, you can actually use any brush as long as that brush can get into a nice tip and you can do your inking. Okay. Just like when I was in Japantown many years ago and I was just looking at random brushes, I came upon this thing and I saw that it was a sharp tip. Like I wasn't inking, I just opened up the package. This package at the time, it was like these plastic package that you can just open up this seal and then just take it out from this little package and then put it back in. So I just opened it and then I just looked at the tip and I kind of like flicked it. And after I flicked it, it came back to a tip. I thought, I'm going to give this a try. That's how I ended up with this. So I was the first comic book artist that was using this for many, many years. Like I would watch YouTube and look at other people or go to comic book convention and no one was using it. And then I thought, I'm gonna start making YouTube videos of this, and maybe people's gonna think I'm weird because everyone's using a Raphael or Winsor Newton. I started making YouTube videos, and then I had a flood of emails from other artists and other inkers asking me, what is that you're using? What is that? Do you fill it? Do you dip it? How much does that cost? And ever since I started making YouTube videos and people seeing me use this brush, a lot of the people in the comic book industry is using the same brush. I'm not saying that I'm the direct influence in having them. I'm sure it's like someone saw my videos and then they started using it. And then when their artist friends are asking them what brush they use, they also recommend this. So it's just like it's really a good brush, and if something is good, like people just gravitate towards it. Right here, we feel this in black. Like this brush here, I don't really even need like the barrel of the brush. I've done this before in one of my other videos, but I'm gonna show you guys here. Like I'm gonna dip the brush, okay, and I'm just gonna unscrew this top part of the brush. I mean, just I don't really even hold this part. And then I'm gonna put that aside. I'm just gonna hold this. I'm just gonna ink like this. Okay, it's still the same thing. So I'm gonna go in here and kind of like ink here. Wild, huh? Kind of crazy. Like I don't really need the back part of the barrel. I can just hold this and just start inking with this. It feels the same. Okay, I'm just gonna ink some of these lines. But it looks kind of weird that you don't have the back part of the brush. But again, it's understanding the brush, knowing how it works, that you can be able to use any brush or tools to do the work. Sometimes I'll tell other artists, or especially some of my students, that you should be able to use a micron or a brush or a crow quill to mimic the same kind of look. Okay, so even though they're different tools, you should be able to control each tool and to create the same effect or the same texture. Okay, but I can tell you this one tool, like for example, you can use a crow quill to create a lot of angular effects, and that's done quicker than using a brush. Okay, you can use a brush to create like really nice line weights, like really nice thick to thins, like a crow quill or a brush. But you can also do that with a with a micron, except that you have to go back and kind of like fill it in, which takes a little bit longer. So the takeaway from that is understand which tool can create the effect faster, and then go there and then work with it. But don't limit yourself to only one tool. Don't say, I don't have a brush, I can't ink it, my brush broke or my quill broke. Try to be able to use all the different tools to create the same effect. And then that way you don't have to be stressed out. Many years ago, I was inking some backgrounds, and I was using a repeatograph, and then the tip broke. When that tip broke, I was panicking. How am I going to ink in the rest of the rulers? Like, all I have is quills and brushes. Like, how am I going to use that with a ruler? So after a while of practicing your different tools and trial and error, I can use microns to ink with a ruler. I can use a brush. If I'm using a brush to draw lines, all you're doing is holding the ruler in an angle, and you're just putting the brush sideways and you're just gliding it over. You don't have to be like a repeatograph and just pushing it down. It's really how you use your tools. Let me see what other questions are there. Let's see. The 200 series. Jimmy Reyes, love your videos too. Learned a lot about inking with the quill, sculpting the line weight. Yes, like line weights are very important with inking because if you're not doing line weights, you're not really inking. You're just tracing. Let me see what other questions. Jim Klein wrote, I heard that the image paper was fantastic to work on. What is your experience with it? So the image paper that I've worked on, it's like a really thick stock and it's really, really thick. I think it's like, probably like the best paper out there. Image paper is super thick, is smooth, and it inks really nicely. And it's not like, see, this Marvel paper here, it's like this really white, bright white. I'm going to show you the difference. I don't know if you can see it. Okay. Here is an old Marvel paper. Here is the Eon paper. You see the difference between the two? This one's whiter, and this one's like all kind of like an off-white. This one's the old Marvel paper from a long time ago that they don't use anymore. The difference is when you're using the white paper, it reflects light more onto your eyes. So it's kind of a little bit blinding. Like for example, if I have my light in my table lamp, the table lamp that I'm using, like right over here, if I have it angled in the wrong direction, it's basically kind of like looking at reflection off of glass, and it kind of hurts your eye if you're looking at it for a long time. So that's my thing with the the smooth white stock. But with image comic stock, those that nice thick paper that I was talking about earlier, it's not this really bright white. It's more of an off white, and then when you ink it with it, it's like the perfect paper. Yeah, I don't know how Image Comics distribute the paper because I've done some work for Image Comics before, like Top Cow. I also done some work for Todd McFarlane Production. I also did some other projects for Image. It's not like they have an editor. Like all the people that you work with Image is aside from Todd McFarlane Production and and Mark Silvestri, they have companies that where I guess they can send you Bristol boards. Not for me. Most of the time, all the times that I've done work for Todd McFarlane and Mark Silvestri, they would send me Bristol boards that's already penciled by other pencilers, and I would just ink on top of it. But if you're working with any other image people, they don't have Bristol boards because you're just working with like a private artist that's just drawing something, and then you're going in there and you're inking it. Yeah, yeah. So what I'm saying is that you can't request Bristol boards from Image because they don't really have like a department where they can send Bristol boards. From my experience. Let's see. Let me see. I heard that. Okay, Cairo. Also, my pencil assignment is basically done. I just have to render stuff and finish my backgrounds. Any books that you would recommend for architecture and perspective? I will struggle with it. Architecture and background. See any books I could recommend. So when I look at architecture and structures and perspective, I don't really like look at books. I'm just looking at the stuff that I see on like when I'm out in public on the streets. I look at how buildings go and how perspective goes. I have a couple of basic drawing videos on how to draw in 1 point perspective and 2 point perspective. Kai, if you want to take that, check that out. Look at my videos. Most of my 1 point perspective, 2 point perspective, or any vantage perspective videos that you see out there, it should be good. It's just 1 point perspective, 2 point perspective, 3 point, and then fisheye. Yeah, I can't recommend. Most of the stuff that I learned from 1 point perspective, 2 point was from high school teacher, and then after learning it, understanding it, then I would just study where I see when I'm taking the bus or when I'm driving. Well, not when I'm driving, but when I'm out and about. I would look at buildings and imagine to myself, how do I draw that? How do I like ink that? Okay. Let me see if there's any other questions. Fan Expo is San Francisco this weekend. I wonder if Walden will have a booth there. I contacted Fan Expo about having a booth there, and they asked me to like fill out this form. I filled out the form, and they haven't responded to me, so I'm not going to be going to Fan Expo, even though it's like It's only a few miles away. I have some friends that are going to Fan Expo, but I don't really go to conventions to hang out. I mean, like to buy stuff anymore. If I'm at conventions these days, it's to be behind the booth. So if the convention doesn't respond back to me, or if they don't invite me, usually I just I'd rather just stay home and then do some of the work that I have that's waiting for me. Because I enjoy going to comic book conventions to meet people. I'm a real people person, and I like meeting people that ask me to like sign the books, or people that bring toys to me to sign. And then sometimes you get to meet other artists that you work with for many years, and then it's the first time seeing them in person. So that's pretty nice. Like an artist that I met recently, Sam De La Rosa. I met him 2 times in 2 different conventions, and I know of his work. And I think the first time we met each other, we were in a panel together. He's one of the inkers that worked on Venom Lethal Protector. He's a very nice guy. We already knew of each other because of our work. And then just meeting 2 times. The third time we saw each other at the convention, we were just comfortable with each other. It's like almost like seeing long lost friends. That's the beauty of working in the comic book industry. You meet friends, like kind of like online friends, or email friends, or telephone friends, and then you work for so long. Then when you finally meet each other in person, it's like, hey, it's like a long lost friend that you haven't seen in a long time. It's really amazing how that works. So right now I'm using the Statler pen to ink in all the line work, all my black areas that is filled in. I'm just gonna come back and use the Statler to ink in all the other areas. Let me see if there's any questions. See, Kai, sadly, I forgot to bring my pencil page. I went out of town for the week, so it's going to be a while till I can finish. Take your time. Take your time on the pages. Advanced ink. Sam Sosa wrote, what markers or inks would you suggest for color? I use, see, after this video finish, there's going to be a link on the bottom which shows you all the Copic markers and colors that I use. I use these markers. They work exactly like Copic markers, but it doesn't cost as much. The company that makes markers, they sent me free samples, and I tried it, and it's pretty good. They're like parkour markers. There's also another brand that I tried that was pretty good. It's kind of it's kind of nice to try different brands to see what works and what doesn't work. Though the one that works, I'm gonna put them in the link. Or if you go to my website, waldenwongart.com, there's gonna be this big orange button that says Walden on Amazon. Now, if you click that, you're gonna see all the tools that I use. Like I put in all the tools, the same exact tools that I use. So if you wanted to buy the same tools I use, you can order from there, which is order through your own Amazon account. And any links that you click on, that you order through my links, I get a little bit of a commission from Amazon. So that's kind of nice. The Amazon was able to do that for me. Have me have a affiliated account. Okay, let me see if there's any other questions. Cairo, thank you. I mainly asked that because I will constantly just keep going back and change stuff till I think it's perfect. Recently, I have gotten to a point where I can actually finish. Good. Yes. When I'm drawing commissions, a lot of times I'm just drawing something, and then I'll find myself erasing. I'll draw a hand, I erase it. I'll draw another hand. This hand here, if you look closely, you can see that I erased the bottom line over and over again until I get it right. Sometimes I'm drawing something, it doesn't look right, or I'll just flip it around to the other side just to see the back. So here's the front side. Once you're done drawing it, sometimes I'll flip it to the back and kind of look through the back just to see how the back side of it looks. If it looks okay, then it's normal. But if it kind of looks off, then I would redraw it. You can also look through a mirror so you can see the reverse side, just to see how it looks like through different eyes. You see, Raw Meticulin wrote artisan markers. Yes, I also use artisan markers. So if there's parkour and artisan markers, those are pretty good. And I tried those 2 brands of, they're exactly I told you guys, they're exactly like Copic markers. Don't even waste all that money on buying Copic markers. I had those markers. I've been using those markers almost every week, and then for maybe 2 years. I got them since the beginning of the pandemic, and this is 3 years later. Those markers still works. Like those, like using it every week. Those markers still works. Like it hasn't run out of ink yet. So I highly recommend those markers, Arteza and Parku. They're nice and vibrant in color. So right now I'm using these markers, I mean these microns to fill in all the line work, everything that's like that needs to be filled in with black. Actually, I need to, I'm gonna go up here and fill in this part so it'll be dry once I go back up there. So I'm just gonna dip my brush into this brand of ink over here, and then fill that in like this. You guys can buy Copic markers, but I know they're expensive. Like a set of 64 of the parkour, they're like $30, but a set of of the same kind of markers, there's like a chisel tip and a fine tip. Both sides are good. If they're Copics, because of the brand name, it just costs a lot more. So save your money. I'd rather you guys be able to buy 2 sets of Arteza or 3 sets of parkour, and then make your money last longer for you. Walden, during the pandemic, were you still able to get plenty of work? Yeah, during the pandemic, I was still working because, like, I know Marvel. There was like a project that I was working with Marvel. I think it was called Empire or something. I don't really remember the exact name. I was lined up for it, and then when the pandemic happened, they placed it on hold, and then they canceled it like 6 months later. Not only did they cancel it, the editor was laid off. So like not only did the project ended, but the editor like didn't have their job anymore. But for myself as a freelancer, I was still able to get work elsewhere, either through Marvel, DC, or other editors. So I was keeping busy, or independent projects. So yeah, it's as a freelance artist, you can actually work for any publishers out there, and that's the good thing. If you're an exclusive for like Marvel or something, and then you're out of work with Marvel, then that's it. Like Marvel doesn't have you work, and you can't work with any other publishers. During the pandemic, it was a little bit slower because there was a paper shortage or something, where they couldn't print papers, or people weren't really buying the books that Marvel was doing because they didn't want to go out and buy the books. Now, I can tell you that the manga industry, like Japanese manga, they were thriving. Most of the books where people weren't buying, they were actually downloading books, digital books where they can just read it on Kindle or read it on the Comixology. So that was thriving. In fact, most of the Japanese comics, like Naruto, Chainsaw Man these days, they're doing really well. Even more better than Marvel or DC Comics. So in comics, there's still, and I was freelancing for Viz Media as well. Not so much drawing stuff, but I was doing art touch-ups and production work for them. So I was always constantly busy. I've been an artist where I can draw traditionally by hand, and I can also create art with Photoshop, where I can draw with Photoshop, and that came in handy. Photoshop wasn't something that I wanted to do for artwork, but it was just more of something for fun. Like I enjoy back then. I enjoy photo manipulation. Like you have a photo of a friend and you want to get rid of some of the background stuff. How do you do that? So I learned Photoshop through using this book called the Photoshop Classroom Book. I had some friends who worked at Disney, and they told me, Walden, you should really learn Photoshop. It's gonna come in handy in the future someday. So I just bought that book, And I started learning step by step. I just started learning everything about Photoshop as much as I can. I started talking to my friend who worked at Disney, like what he knows and what he thinks I should know, and then everything he mentioned, I learned it. And then now I use Photoshop so often that it's second nature to me. Like I just know how to use Photoshop pretty well, not only for drawing but also for photos, for creating ads. The business cards that I have, I actually made that myself with Photoshop. The banner I have, I made that with Photoshop, and some of my like traditional drawings. Like Photoshop comes in really handy. Let's see if there's other questions. Sam Sosa, I have trouble with negative space around characters with backgrounds. Do you have or could you make a video about that or have suggestions about comic backgrounds? Negative space. Okay. That's one thing a lot of artists don't pay attention to. Negative space. So I'm gonna start discussing some of that. That's a really good question. Thank you for asking that. I really like that question. Negative space is drawing the object that is not there. Okay, when I draw, I think of the four basic shapes, which is, you can see this in some of my videos. If you looked at my recent video of how I draw Spider-Man, you can see some of this. Basic shapes is square, rectangle, and triangle. No, square, right? Those four basic shapes: square, rectangle, triangle, and a cylinder. If you know how to draw those four basic shapes, you can pretty much draw everything. Okay. Now, when I'm drawing, when I'm sketching stuff, I think of all those basic shapes and how I can fit into them. Like, for example, this body here, this is a rectangle. Okay. This arm here, it can be a rectangle, square, or it could be a cylinder. This head is a circle. Now, negative space is to look around the outside. Like, for example, right here, this triangle here, that is negative space. When you look at the negative space, not only are you looking at for the triangle, you're looking at the same angle to make sure the angle is correct. Okay, so think about negative space. Here's a negative space, diamond shape right over here. Like if I need to look at this, look at the negative space over here. Here's a triangle here, and then here's another triangle here. Your shapes can overlap, and you can draw different shapes. Like for example, the negative space on Jean Grey here. I'll look at how I would draw this and this. I just put my hand here. You see that rectangle shape right over here? You are drawing that shape when you think of negative space. Okay, don't just draw the object. Look at the outline of the object. Okay, look at the negative space here. You can draw that. Okay, like if I was going to draw this little arch here, that's a little oval. Don't just think of the cape or the back. Think of the negative space. Okay, I'm going to go and draw in some of this detail. Okay, some of the hatch lines. Now I'm using this micron because that it just looks better with Nick Bradshaw stuff. Okay, and I'm using the size 3 right now. Earlier I linked in the faces already. Okay, let me see if there's any other questions. Let's see. Snart wrote, I have not read a Marvel comic in years. Okay, Snart, time for you to start reading a Marvel comic. You know what? I just grabbed my speedball. I was gonna dip this in there. I actually wanted to switch different size pen. Right now I'm using a 3. I'm gonna switch over to number 2. You have not read a Marvel comic in years. Is this who is? Oh yeah, okay. I had a student. We were talking about, this is the funniest thing I got to tell you guys. Okay, I have a student that comes to my class a while back, and then we were talking about Guardians of the Galaxy. All the boys, they were talking about Guardians of the Galaxy, and then she was a girl, a student girl, and he goes, "I'm sorry, I don't know anything about these characters." And you don't know who Guardians of the Galaxy is? This is when the first movie came out, and then she goes, "Yeah, I don't really pay attention to Star Wars." So we all started cracking up. That was like one of the funniest moments being a art instructor, because she thought Guardians of the Galaxy was part of Star Wars, which is understandable to make that mistake. Get this in. Let me see if there's any other questions. I have not. Let's see. Kai, in today's age, how would you go about trying to get a gig as a new penciler or inker? That's something that is terrifying to me because I'm a couple of years away from getting a job. Okay, don't be terrified. For all you expired, let's see, for for all you aspiring artists out there, if you want to get a job as a professional artist, it's out there. There's a lot of jobs for you guys. Don't give up. Just do what you want to do. Just keep practicing, and then eventually you'll get that job. I like comic book art ever since I was a kid. I didn't think about working as a comic book professional until I graduated college. Okay, I went to college for a I have a degree, bachelor degree, Bachelor of Science degree in business marketing. So I know everything about business and marketing, but that's for me to get the degree. But once I got out, I still wanted to do comics. So I gave myself a year to see what I can do with the comic thing. And then I just kept practicing. For 1 year, I said to myself, if I don't get this job, I'm as a comic book artist or any kind of professional comic art, I'm just going to give up. So within that 1 year, every day, uh, within the 365 days, I was drawing. And then later on, I discovered you can do inking. So every day, I would practice inking. And this was when I had a full time job. Some of you who follow me on my other videos will know this already. I used to work in the bank, a Wells Fargo bank, full time right after college. I gave myself 1 year to see if I can get work as a comic book artist, working a full day, and then bringing I would bring like a drawing board and also my inking samples and a bottle of ink, and I would bring it to work. And during my lunch break, I would practice inking. That was how much I really wanted to become a comic book artist. I remember there used to be a magazine called Wizard Magazine, and I would read these comic book artists. They would say, "I've been to the movie premiere of this movie or that movie," and I was like, rubbing shoulders with these actors, and I was like, "Wow, these comic book artists, they're like rock stars." We're not rock stars. I can tell you. I can tell you that right now. We're not like super rock stars or anything. I, there's like, I earlier in this video I was talking about podcasts and then how I was thinking about making podcasts, except that it's going to be over on my YouTube channel where I would be making commissions and then talking about everything I know in comics. I should do something because I have so much to talk about. Anyway, we're not rock stars. Even though, like a long time ago, one of my artist friends, Paul Smith, he's one of the artists that drew Alpha Flight and X-Men. He said, Walden, anytime you go to comic book conventions, enjoy it. Enjoy it because that's the only time you can become a rock star. Everybody knows you. Everybody wants your autograph and so on. And I can understand what he meant by that, but I don't see. I mean, I don't see it as rock star status. Some people will see like comic book artists as a rock star, which kind of throws me off. I remember at a convention in I was at which convention, Heroes Con at North Carolina, and then I was just there, and then this casual cosplayer walked up to me, and she asked me like, well, actually, no, she was dressed as one of the characters from Superman Red Sun. That's what happened. And I go, hey, nice costume. And then she asked me, what do you do? Oh, I'm one of the artists on Superman Red Sun. And then she got so excited, like she really got like really, whoa, I can't believe I'm meeting one of the artists from Superman Red Sun, like that. Because I guess you don't really know the face to the name. I still keep in touch with her because she's doing something else, but she doesn't cosplay as Superman Red Sun anymore. I mean, she does like teddy bears or something right now. That was the only time I saw her at that one convention. I never saw her again. But she was really excited, and then she asked me to draw like one of the a Superman Red Sun piece for her boyfriend. And then she told me, like, she messaged me and told me that her boyfriend got it, and she was like really happy. They're both really happy that they got to meet me, and the boyfriend wasn't there at the show. There's a lot of stories to tell. Let me see if there's any other questions. Let's see. In today's, yeah, so getting a gig, it's out there. Just practice. let's see. Kai, just practice, practice, practice. When I got my first gig, I didn't even know I had a gig. It just, I thought I was just practicing, and then I just got a gig. Another thing is, don't be afraid to work on independent books. I know a lot of artists that went to work in comics, they went to work for the big two, Marvel Comics or DC Comics. But you can also work for the smaller publishers. In fact, when I was working for Marvel Comics and DC Comics, I was still trying to get work for independent publishers. A lot of the work that I've done when I first started out, I mean, the first book I started working on was for Antarctic Press. I believe they're still around. They're the company that created a Ninja High School and Warrior Nun Ariella. They hired me to ink Shakyamuni Shooting Gallery. So that was one of the first books I've ever worked on. And you guys know how much they paid me? You guys will laugh. They paid me $8 a page to work on, like $8 a page. A page takes me maybe 10 hours, so I was making like maybe 75 cents an hour or something. But my passion for working in comics was so strong that I didn't care that they paid me so little, because I wanted a book to work on which would get published, and at the same time, not only will it get published, but it's something that I can continue practicing on that will be published. So I did that before I gave myself the 1 year. I also worked for another company called Entity Comics. That they had a character called Nero X. So I remember doing a couple issues for them. They didn't pay me at all. They said they were gonna pay me. They didn't pay me, but I'm still friends with them because I understand that they couldn't afford it because they were an independent publisher. But then they were nice enough to send me pretty much one of each comic that they've ever made, and then they're still making comics now. I remember working on a book called Snowman, and then another one called uh, was it Stargate, based on the movie Stargate, and that was okay. But then they just couldn't pay. But it was okay because I got those books. They sent me complimentary published copies, and I started bringing those complimentary copies to comic book conventions, and I started showing those to like different editors and publishers when I was showing my portfolio. And when they saw that actual book, I was actually giving them the book after they looked at my portfolio, and they started taking my work more seriously. They're like, wow, this Walden guy is a published artist. Maybe I should really look at his work a little bit more. And then that's how I started getting more practice, more work, until I eventually landed work at Marvel and DC. Now, I should also mention that when I got work at Marvel and DC, it's actually being at the right place at the right time. I've met some comic book artists that would help me along the way. Like Paul Smith, who I mentioned earlier, one of the artists that drew X-Men and Alpha Flight during the run. I didn't even know he drew X-Men. I just met him because he was promoting his book for Image Comics, Wildstorm, called Leave It to Chance at the time. I saw him and then asked him for a portfolio review, and he was kind enough to look at my portfolio. And then later he asked me to go, he took my portfolio. He said, follow him. I followed him, and what he was doing, he was showing my portfolio to all the editors and publishers that he knew at the convention at the time. And that's how I landed my first Marvel work. Okay, so the first Marvel work was for X-Force, inking over Adam Polina, and I was talking to the editor-in-chief at the time. I remember I talked to him in, I think it was WonderCon, and then he gave me his business card after Paul Smith told him to hire me. When Paul Smith stepped away, Bob Harris said, "Wow, that's quite an endorsement from getting like an endorsement from Paul Smith." He gave me his card, told me to call him back in a week. I called him back in a week, and it just so happens that one of his editors, Jason Liebig, who Jason Liebig now. I think he likes like TV shows like Eating Channel or something. I still keep in touch with him on social media. He's a nice guy. I think it's like he collects like candy wrappers and stuff. Anyway, I talked to them, and they said, "Walden, do you have time to ink some pages on X Force?" So X Force helping out on 3 pages. That led to helping out a few pages here and there, and I was doing a lot of helping out a page here and a page there, which was understandable because I didn't have regular work. And it wasn't until met Pete Woods. Pete Woods is the guy who I inked over on Shotgun Mary Shooting Gallery. It was the first time I first published work, and then I was at a portfolio review at San Diego Comic Con, and I was showing DC Comics my portfolio. Once I was done, there's this guy who pulled me over and said, "Hey, Walden, my name is Pete Woods. You inked me on Shotgun Mary Shooting Gallery." And I said, "Hey, it's nice to see you." Like, you worked with someone, you never actually spoke to them on the phone. This was before the internet days. And then I just spoke to them. And he said, "Walden, I'm going to be working on Deadpool. I was wondering if you'd be interested in inking me over that." And I said, "Yeah, I would love to." Like, I've been doing bits and pieces of inking for Marvel here and there. And then now you're pulling me over to ink with you regularly on Deadpool. Yeah, for sure. So we started working on Deadpool, a long run together. We started working on Deadpool, and then after that, when I was working on Deadpool, I started working on Avengers and other X-Men titles, and almost like all the editors at Marvel knew who I was. And I don't know if I should tell you guys this or if I should save this for the podcast. I think I'm gonna save it for the podcast, so it'll be more exciting. But anyway, all the editors knew me, and then they were like contacting me. I was working for the X-Men group. I was working for the Spider-Man group. I was working for the Avengers group, all at the same time. Not only that, Dark Horse Comics also started contacting me, asking me to do some inking work. So I worked on Predator. I worked on Xena. I worked on some of the movie licensed properties. I was working for Dark Horse, Marvel Comics, and also DC Comics at the same time. DC Comics, I met that same year. All of this happened in the same year. DC Comics hired me to work on JLA, Justice League of America, inking over Mark Parrillo, as well as helping out inking over Howard Porter, those two artists. So I was really busy for the first year. Very, very lucky. I don't know how all that happened, but I was really. I mean, can you imagine? I was inking X-Men, and then over DC, I was inking JLA, which had all the main DC characters: Superman, Batman, Green Lantern. I was like a spoiled artist, so having a lot of stuff to do. Anyway, let me see if there's any questions. Let's see. Let me go back. See, one kind of rushed me because, okay. Kai wrote different store. Snart wrote, "Do you think I could become a character designer for companies?" Yes, there's a lot of jobs out there where you can be a character designer. You can be a character designer for movie characters. You can be a character designer for video games. A lot of jobs out there to be character designers. You can be the character designer for like commercials, storyboard artists. You can do things like that. You really need to start creating a portfolio of your characters, and then have a wide variety of the characters. Don't just always draw the same looking kind of characters. Have a diverse portfolio that you can draw. Like, you can draw boys, you can draw girls, you can draw babies, you can draw animals. Have all that, okay? Because designing characters doesn't mean just designing humans. There's times that you need to draw like a superhero dog or something, like for these I think DC recently had a superhero dog where The Rock was playing like Superman or something. Okay, right now I'm using this micron to ink in some of the lightning bolts. And when I'm making the lightning bolts, I don't really have to follow exactly because these are my own pencils. But once I get towards the the lines that were drawn by the original penciler, Nick Bradshaw, then I want to follow those a little bit closer. But for my own pencils, I'm just going to go a little bit more relaxed. Let's see. Let me see if there's other questions. Let's see. Do you think... Let's see. In today's age, how would you go about trying to... Okay, I answered that. Do you think political cartoons limit artists for jobs, or does it not matter that much? If you're into political cartoons, you can draw political cartoons. I don't think it should limit you from doing work. One of my students, Jeremy, he does political cartoons for the New York, I think it's the New York Times, and he's doing pretty well. But after he's doing the political cartoons, he's also doing his own book, so he's keeping busy. But it shouldn't limit you. You can be doing political cartoons and then doing your own other stuff on the side. The political cartoons is just something for you to get your paycheck, and then you can use that paycheck to do your the only thing. And then I think I read someone wants to work in Image Comics. I feel kind of rushed mainly because I have been working 9 to 5 job in Florida. People are so crazy sometimes try to fight me because I can return there. I know. Well, if you love what you do, like inking, drawing, penciling, or whatever, even though if you're working 9 to 5, just try to spend like a couple of hours to do like one panel or something, or to draw like one character. If you're doing a character design, you don't have to do like a whole page. I remember I was doing a full-time job at the bank, 9 to 5. After that, I would hang out with friends, and then when I get home, I would try to. Oh, this is her fabric right here. Let me ink in this fabric, and then when I get home, I would try to ink in like maybe one panel. Okay, I remember some of my samples that I've worked on. One page took me like 3 weeks to do, but when I was at the portfolio review, I was showing. I remember showing Mark Silvestri. He was asking me. I think that's how I also got work at the Top Cow. I was showing Mark Silvestri, and he asked me, "How long did it take you to do this?" Because it was a piece that he penciled. I said, "Oh, just a couple hours." Even though it took me like so many weeks, but you can say that no one's gonna know, and then just impress them. And then when you get to work, then go and burn the midnight oil. Wow, I can't believe I'm almost done. Okay, so here I'm gonna grab the ruler. Where's my? Okay, here's this ruler. I'm gonna ink in this line. Here's my see-through ruler. Ink in this. I'm gonna do a double line, so it looks like there's some kind of energy happening, like that. Okay, just one line makes it boring. Extra line makes it look better. Add some speed lines over here. Okay, and I'm going to maybe add some. I don't know. I think this is part of the scribble line. Right now, I'm using size 2. I'm going to grab a size 3, a little bit larger, to ink in some of these lightning bolts. Let's see. Different. Do you think I could become okay? Sam Sosa. How much material is required that would be appropriate for an art portfolio to get a job? And do studios still want traditional illustrators that work on paper? Seems like there's demand for digital. Okay, so when you're showing a portfolio, if you're at a comic book convention, I highly recommend this because I make the same mistake, which I'm gonna talk about right now. When I was showing my portfolio, I used to put in like 20 pieces of my work because I was so proud of the 20 pieces. That was such a huge mistake because the more pieces you put in there, the more chance of a editor or publisher to see more mistakes. When you're showing a portfolio, just put in max 6 pieces. Okay, don't put more than 6 pieces. First of all, you don't want more stuff in there to kind of like have editors kind of be turned off by having to flip through all these pages, and then because there's a line for portfolio, and you don't want them to see stuff where they can say that your stuff isn't that good. So 6 pages maximum. Try to have some sequential pages in there. Sequential pages as in panel pages. Right now, this is the white gel pen, which I'm going to use to cut into the black, which I mentioned earlier. Having sequential pages, having some splash pages. Also, having a variety of different inkers if you're doing a inking portfolio. If you're a penciler, make sure you do sequential pages if you want to be a storyteller. Don't just turn in splash pages all the time. Okay, so sequential pages is important so you can tell a story. The sequential pages should be a good story that they can look at it and know what's going on, to know the flow without having to read any word balloons. Okay, so 6, 7 pages is good. If you're doing character design, I would say the same thing. Character design, you should also work on some backgrounds in there because if you're doing character designs, ever so often you're gonna have to draw backgrounds as well. Okay, let me find my micron to ink in some of the hair that I missed. But the more versatile you are with your art, the better of chances that you'll be able to get work. I'm a comic book artist, but I've done stuff for TV commercials. I've done stuff for movies. There's a movie called Super Guy. If you look up Super Guy in IMDb, I'm one of the artists that did some work there. I did some work for a Gatorade commercial. I've done package designs. I've done logo designs because I'm just an artist, not just a comic book artist. Let me see if there's other questions. See, Kai, I really want to work at Image, but DC is also a close second because funny, my middle name is Cal L, so it's meant to be. Yeah, Image Comics, you're actually working for yourself, not so much for a publisher. If you find a, artist that you work with, so here's how Marvel DC works. Marvel will hire you to work on their characters. DC will hire you to work on their characters. Image Comics are characters that are owned by the creator, and the creator will ask you to do the work on spec. Okay, some creators will do better, like Mark Millar, which I worked with. He's the person that worked on Jupiter Circle, Kick Ass, King's Gentleman, or whatever that movie is. He also worked on Superman Red Sun. Such coincidence. He actually pays as you turning in the work because he's so successful and he has all these properties and he's already getting paid. But for Image Comics, most of the Image comic creators I know that I'm friends with, they actually do the work and then they're paid on spec, meaning that they're drawing the whole page and they're not getting paid for months. They're sending it in. Once they send it in, it gets solicited. Once it's solicited, it goes to sales. And depending on how much are sold, Image Comics will send you the money and then send them a check after publishing, after printing, after advertising, like that. And whatever that money is, that is your profit. If you hire colors to color your work, then you have to split that. If you hire letters to letter your work, then you have to share that. So that's the difference between Marvel, DC, and Image Comics. Dark Horse actually pays you a page rate. They're pretty good at it too. Their page rate is comparable to Marvel and DC. Image Comics, it fluctuates. You don't know if you're getting paid a lot, or if you're getting paid little, or if you're getting paid nothing at all. Let me see if there's any other questions. Let's see how much material I really want to. Okay, Danny B wrote, Walden, what do you think about new artists working for free as an inker? I have a full-time job and I could work on a comic on the side. When I first started out, I did a lot of free comics. Not only did I do a lot of free comics, I had comic book companies that would scam me. One of the publishers was London Night Studios. They asked me to work on something. I worked on a whole book. I sent it in to them, and then they called me back and said, "Your inks are absolutely horrible. We can't print this. We can't pay you for it." And they never paid me. So they never paid me. So I thought it was never printed. Years later, I was at a convention. I was like doing some signing, and then that book came up, and I go, "What is this?" I looked inside. They actually took my artwork and they printed it, and they never paid me. Not only did they never pay me, they also kept all the original artwork. So that company is called London Night. They're probably out of the business right now. They're not doing comics anymore. The creator of London Night is Everett Hartsoe. Every so often, I'll see him doing these Kickstarters, and it's the same character, Razor, that he's trying to sell. But he's still out there. If he contacts any of you guys, I don't recommend working for him because I've been scammed. I don't know if he's going to scam you or anyone, but I don't recommend working with him. But if you're getting work that you're doing and then you're doing free work and it's known that you're doing free work, is okay, but try not to get scammed. Okay, here's these two, before, after. And then we have Meryl right here, before, after. I've done a lot of free work. Like I mentioned, Eternity Entity Comics was one of the companies that I did free work because they would print 200 copies of the same book that I worked on, and I would just give those books to publishers, or I would give it to friends, or I would go to comic book convention and give it to a lot of other artists that I see, and they would offer me work. See, Greg Jude. Hey, Greg. Nice of you to join me here. Hey, Walden. Always love your videos and art, and I'm glad I caught you live tonight. Thank you for joining, Greg. Nice to see you here. V. Roca Ink and Music. Not everyone can say that. While working as an inker for Marvel, he is also related to the Sorcerer Supreme at the same company. You're a legend. What's Sorcerer Supreme? I don't know what that means. Not everyone can say that while working as an inker for Marvel, he is also related to the Sorcerer Supreme at the same company. I'm not related to anyone. Does an artist need management to get work? Some artists will need management. A lot of the artists in Brazil, Caracho Studios, they represent other artists out there that can't speak English, so they have like a agent. I don't recommend getting an agent. I've never had an agent in all my years of working in comics. I just did the work myself. Back then, Paul Smith, the guy who showed my portfolio around, he actually brought my work to some of the agents, and then they refused to represent me, even though I was all for it. They said, we only represent writers and pencil. We don't represent inkers. And then a year later, I got a lot of work. And then I think one of the agents saw me and he goes, oh, congratulations. I see that you're doing a lot of work. I'm kicking myself in the butt for not representing you. Well, it just things just work out how it works out. But if you're good at representing yourself, if you're sociable, you're able to talk to people, then you don't really need representation. It's not really necessary. They also get a cut. Some of the contracts, actually most of the contracts that I sign for publishers these days, they would actually have a clause that say sign your name, or if you're an agent, sign your agent's name here, and then who we send the check to. Okay, let me see if there's any other questions while I zoom back so everyone can see the work. Okay, so this is before. See, let me answer all questions. Not see. Does an artist need management? Yeah, you don't really need management unless you can't like speak for yourself, or I don't really need. I'm good at juggling work. Like I said before, I worked at Marvel, DC, and Dark Horse at the same time, and then just turning your pages on time. Make sure you do your work and stay seated, and instead of like pushing it off. That sucks. London Knights should be ashamed of themselves for printing your work without paying. Yeah, every time I see that book, like it reminds me of it, but I still sign it. How can I send you my art? If you want, if I don't know, you send me your art as in like for me to collect. If you want to send me your art for me to review your artwork, I do have a Patreon page. It's patreon.com/WaldenWongArt. Once this video ends, wait for it, or actually look at any of my videos and look at the video description. It'll have my link. You can choose a video like mentorship over there, and then see which one works for you, and then I can mentor your artwork, and then do a art review and critique video for you. Let me see. Sadly, not getting paid is a reality of indie comic industry. Yeah, that's true. A lot of indie comics, they don't pay unless you have a hit in your hands like Hellboy. But most indie comics doesn't pay. Sometimes, even to this day, I've been working in comics for like a lot of years. I'll still get indie comic publishers that would contact me and say, "Hey, Walden, would you want to work on this? I can't pay you, but it'll give you exposure, or I can only pay this much." Unless it's a friend that you're willing to help out, then you can do like help them out. But if it's like someone that you don't know that contacts you and asks you to do work for free, I mean, unless you're willing to do the work for free, it's up to you. If you, but again, like like in the beginning, I did a lot of work for free because I want to get published work. So it depends. Like if you have the time, it doesn't hurt, and you can do it. Just make sure you get published. If you don't have the time and you don't want to, my thing is, if you're passionate about the project, do it. If you're not into it, then don't accept it. Free or not free, paid or not paid, always do work that you love to do. See, I just want to show I'm not sadly getting paid. Is he sadly? Like, yeah. Is he Sam Sosa? I just want to show my gratitude and I just want to show my gratitude and thank you for everything you do and sharing your gift. I appreciate you. Thank you, Sam. Sam Sosa. That's very nice of you. You can message me. I would love to see the artwork. You don't really need to send me the artwork. That's really nice of you. I have some people that will send me a print, so that's nice. Jimmy Ray is beautiful work. Thank you, Jimmy. You're a great artist too. Yeah, I like watching your channel. See, random question. Do you listen to music when you work? What kind of music do you like to listen to? I I listen to you know what? I don't okay. Some of my friends and some of my students will say that I'm weird. I listen to the radio. Like I like listening to radio because there's a variety of music. I don't pick and choose. Sometimes when I'm on a computer, I'll like dial up. I'll bring up music that I like listening to, and I'll listen to it over and over again. But for the most part, I'll listen. I'm in the car, and then I'm driving, and then I'm just listening to music. I find that it also shows me new music, and it gives me a different opportunity to listen to different music. So I like listen to a lot of different music. Not only do I listen to music when I'm drawing, I'm also watching television. I have a television right next to my drawing table. I'm not actually watching TV. I'm more so listening to the TV, like listening to the. Yeah, when I made blue lines, I made the image a little bit larger. I listen to movies. I listen to TV shows, and when there's a key scene, then I'll turn over to look at what's happening on the television or the movie. So a lot of that, and then if I'm not listening to the TV or if I'm not listening to radio, I'm doing these live streams over here. I'm thinking of doing like a bunch of live streams. Like a lot of times I'm doing commissions. Like I like listening to stories. I like listening to TVs and movies, but I have so many commissions here, and I find that when I'm doing commissions and I'm doing live streams, it makes me finish the commission a little bit quicker. This is the white ink cutting into it there. So I might as well just do maybe a podcast where I'm just talking about random stuff. See, V Ruchi Ink and Music. Do you think there's yet enough work to be done in comics for people that is in the beginning to be able to make a living? I heard that DC has fired a number of artists. There is a lot of work out there. Like if you're a comic book artist and or any kind of artist, there's like lots and lots of work. I have so much work that I can't do all the work. There's many work out there. If you're not working for Marvel or DC, there's like other publishers that you can also do work for, and then they could pay like a good amount, or they can pay a little bit less, and then that's like really depends. If you enjoy the work, then you can like this stuff here. They're not Marvel and DC. This is Carlo Barberi. We're working on a book together. This one is called Protector Saga, and this isn't Marvel, isn't DC. They pay the same, and it's going to be published. So there's a lot of work out there. If you're willing to do look for it, it just takes time to look for it. See, Romlican wrote Jimmy Reyes art. That is a terrible business practice. Workers should be paid for the work and time. Yes, it is a bad practice, but sometimes, if you want to get, I mean, if you're starting out and you need to get work done and you don't have like a printed work, it's a little bit harder. But if you're doing free work and then they're gonna print it, that's like something under your belt. That's still okay. See, Snart, what are those bots on Instagram trying to get me to send my art somewhere? They are very annoying. Yeah, Instagram, every time it happens to me. Every time I post something, like Instagram would say, send this DM there or send that DM there. Like that happens a lot. Just delete it. It's just spam. I don't even know what's the purpose of that. Okay, here's another thing that I'm doing for an independent publisher. This one's for Credence. And then I have these stacks of commissions that I need to do. These are by Mike Bolden. And I'm thinking about just doing live videos with all these commissions that's just been waiting for me. And then right next to me, I have like a huge stack of commissions. Some of these commissions been waiting for a long time. Let's see. What? Okay. Jim, hey Jim. Jim Klein wrote, thank you for streaming tonight. It was great to watch you work. Do you stream often? If so, is there a regular time that you stream? So I haven't been streaming that recently, but I'm thinking I'm gonna start streaming every time I do commissions. And then if I do start streaming, it'll be like maybe around this time, like 2 hours before this time. So I'm thinking that will work best for me, because streaming seems to be easier than actually making an actual video. When I make a YouTube video, I can film, like take hours to film, and then I edit, which takes a lot of time, and I add music. Streaming is much easier. See, and I'm thinking about doing podcasts. So if you're interested in that, something similar to this, where I'm just drawing and I'm just talking, I'm just calling it a podcast. See, so if you're interested in that, you can just watch your work and ask questions. I'll answer all your questions, and also talk about like everything I do in comics. How do people draw that building? Some people, when they're drawing buildings, they're using something called SketchUp, or they're taking a photo and then they're just. So Carlo, he draws buildings in Photoshop in layers. He would take a picture of a building and then create a new layer and draw on top of it. I would print it and I would ink everything by hand traditionally. So it depends. You can either learn perspective and draw it brand new on your own. You can use reference, or these days you can use Photoshop and just draw over it. Okay, let's see. How do people draw? Hey, Nazca. Me too. Is for promotion or something when they ask you to send your work there. Yes, I think that when they're asking you to send your work there, it's just you posting stuff on Instagram, and then they ask you to send it there. It's just making other people see their channel. I think that's what's happening there. Walden, is there a comedy company that rushes you too much, or do you they give you plenty of time? Danny, Danny's question was, do you is there a publisher that rushes you all the time? That is pretty much every publisher out there. That's every publisher out there. Marvel will sometimes contact me to work on 3 pages that was due yesterday. So I'll have like maybe one day. Or DC will contact me. Actually, DC is a little bit more. They give me more time. Marvel is the one that is more of a rush. They'll ask me to work on 1 page. I'll send it to you tomorrow morning, and can you send it to me send it back to me in the afternoon? Something like, if I don't get the file, then I get less time. Walden, Deadpool, the penciler is working on it. He's going to be sending you a page tomorrow morning by 8 o'clock. Can you finish it and have it back to us by 3 o'clock? Because I'm in West Coast time, and they're in New York time. I wait at 8 o'clock. No pages. I wait to 12. No pages. I get the page at 1 o'clock. Does that mean I gotta finish it in 2 o'clock? There's times that things like that happen. You're always in a rush. What do you think of Gundam Wing? Gundam Wing is great. I like Gundam. I think Gundam, Viz Media, they also publish Gundam. Yeah, they also publish Gundam. You should check out one of the books. I like the black and white stuff. Thank you for your reply. I used to dream about it when I was a kid, but I never had the courage to pursue it. Think about pursuing it. I mean, seriously, if I can work in comics, everyone can. I don't see myself as anyone special. I'm not talented or anything. It's just practice. I wasn't born to be able to ink like this. It was something that I learned in along the way. I practice. Even today, as I'm inking and I'm doing other books and I'm learning, working with other published artists and stuff. I would be talking to them and learning new stuff. Here's one project that fell through. Mike Miller asked me to do a sample page on this, but he decided to not use this anymore. This is for something called Enemies of Shadows or something. But I'm not going to talk about that since I'm not going to be working on this. I started working on it. I did all the faces, and then he decided he doesn't need an inker anymore. But I think I'm just gonna finish inking this up, and then put it up on my website for sale if someone will be interested in buying that. Let's see if there's any other questions. How much time do Marvel and DC give you to typically ink a monthly comic book? Typically, if the editors have their if ever the editors have everything on right, usually it's one book a month. One book consists of 20 pages. And if you count 1 month, not including the weekends, Mondays to Friday, there's 4 weeks. 4 weeks, that's a day a page. So if you can do a day a page, you're in good pace. Now, sometimes you might have an emergency. You can't do a page, and then next day you have to do 2 pages. So if you do a day a page, then you're comfortable. Now, if you're working with a lot of publishers and you're doing 2 books or 3 books, you might end up doing 3 pages a day. two pages a day. So that takes a little bit more diligence on your part. If you're able to sit at the drawing table for a good amount of time and not goof around, then that would be beneficial on your part, because you're paid by the page. The more pages you turn in, the more you get paid. The less pages you turn in, the less you get paid. Let's see. Thanks for your replies to good. I think I answered everyone's questions. Great. Please, everyone here, hit the like button if you haven't done so already. It'll help out with the channel. Thank you for watching my video. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already. I'm going to be doing more live feeds in the future. Since this Thanksgiving, I'm probably be doing like a lot of live feeds. I'm also gonna be doing some artist edition reviews and also some drawing tutorials and maybe some art critique and reviews. I put up a lot of art critique and reviews, so I'm gonna change it up a little bit. So thank you for watching. Please subscribe. Check out my website, waldenwongart.com. Once this video ends, check out some of my other videos. You'll see it in the video description. And if you need mentorship or you want to show support for some of my videos, check out my Patreon page. It's patreon.com/waldenwongart. Over there, you see a lot of different tiers that you can check out. Or just go directly to my website and you see links to my Patreon as well as all my other social media links. I also put up videos, blogs, gallery, and also have a shop where you can buy prints and original art from me. So thank you all for joining me. Have a happy Thanksgiving. Take care, and I'll see you in the next live video. Bye, guys. Bye.